Philosophers talk to our times, Sophocles and the nature of prophecy. Let me start somewhere weird. Have you ever lived through a prophecy? Have you ever had words uttered that you never quite forgot, that gradually build and change their meanings over time? For great prophets are not understood in a bland future, a future second coming or a future redemption. Oh no. They gain their power and their pattern after they have happened, as you look back upon their becoming. Great prophecies then are like war enigmas, a puzzle, the thread that hangs over one. As Oedipus was threatened by murdering his father and marrying his mother, and was from birth, a threat that always came back to haunt him. And my prophecy? Oh, nothing so great, and yet one we're all still caught up in. It was 1988, so I would have been 19 and at Cambridge, when Ken Livingstone, if you know who he is, you know who he is, ex-mayor of London, one-time maverick left-wing politician, became rather too respectable and lost an election to Boris Johnson. The humiliation. That one, anyway. When he was a young man, or younger, came to Cambridge, and he gave a lecture to the uni left on life, the universe, and everything. Because, as he said, he couldn't settle on the title when it was booked, which was a year before. The lecture he actually gave was on the gathering importance of Europe in politics. He told a room of students who had hoped he had come to talk about violent revolution, or at least ways that we could use peaceful democratic means to enact genuine socialist policies. He told that audience that what they really had to worry about was Europe in the coming years, that it would dominate British politics, that it would tear the Tory party apart, or at least it had the threat to do so, but it could just as easily turn the left apart. This was 1988, before the fall of the Berlin Wall. At the beginning of the creation of the single market that comes in a way the blueprint of that thing that gets called neoliberalism, which is a form of globalization. It was right at the beginning of all of that. And Ken Livingstone then gave me, if you like, a thread to understand it. In later years, as the Conservative Party pulled itself apart, and I wrote essays in the 1990s, a long time ago now, saying that Europe was the issue that the Tory party could not escape. And it could not escape because it combined their two opposing wings in conflict. The Conservative Party, after all, had both elements of old Whiggism, so believing in the free market, but also huge elements of quasi-racist imperialism. And when the two were opposed, God help it. That was 1990s, and then you get Tony Blair, but always bubbling is that prophecy. That Europe would break across the political spectrum, that it mattered, that it would always matter, that its mattering was something that was going to obsess politics of our generation. And as prophecies go, if you lived through Britain from 2016 onwards, when Brexit became a problem for the entire country, and now its eventual ruination, it's hard not to see the Ken Livingstone as a real prophecy. And that is the secret of prophecy for me. A good prophet is not recognized in something that does happen, but rather they mold the way you understand what will happen. Let us take, as the paradigm case, Oedipus. Oedipus Rex is not for nothing the paradigm play of psychoanalysis, not because of any silly complex, which is just questionable, to put it mildly, but rather because of the way it portrays what it feels like to be depressed or mad, or even, in my case, epileptic. You see, when I have an epileptic fit, I have a moment in my brain. It can happen weeks before the fit. And then I know it's there, just waiting. Looking on, waiting. It's like revolution. It's a prophecy that has not yet happened. a future that witnesses its own creation, a dark precursor. And that is what prophecies do. So Oedipus was a man who was trying to escape his destiny. It had been prophesied, had it not, that he would marry his mother and kill his father. And so he left the home he had been brought up in. He met a stranger. They quarreled and he killed the stranger. And he came to a city he thought he had never seen before, ruled by a monster, half woman, half lion. And he outwitted the monster and solved her riddle and became a king and married the queen of that land and was a great king. For 20 years he was a great king, and he thought he had escaped the gods, that he had lain his prophecy low, that he had escaped the future that was stalking him. And when the play begins, it is because, of course, there's a sequence of famines and wars and ill omen. And Oedipus, the king of Thebes, wants to find out why, what is creating this disaster. And so his brother-in-law says they have to find the old king's murderer. And gradually the action all pulls out, as Oedipus discovers the truth that the people he thought were his parents were only his adopted parents, that his real parents were there in Thebes, that he had married his mother and killed his father, a curse that could never be undone. And throughout all the play, Jocasta, his wife and mother, is always saying, let's not bother with this. Let's not investigate. We better not do this. And so the play is caught between two elements. The king who demands to know, who demands, in order to escape the prophecy, he demands maximum knowledge. And the queen, whose response, knowing that they are stalked by prophecy, because of course she too had once had a son who she thought had been killed, exposed upon a hill, because of that prophecy, that he would one day murder his father. She kind of knew who he was and what she had done. And her stratagem, let's just escape the prophecy by ignoring it. And here you have two of the deep ways you can try to deal with prophecies. You can try and escape them directly by finding out everything you can find out about them. And yet, as often enough, the fate of Oedipus will fall upon you. Because to find out everything is to not escape it. It will not in the end help you escape. That's not what that does. In many ways, it will trap you. Or you can be like good old Jocasta and say, no, let's not find out. Let's pretend the problem doesn't exist. And who knows, it might go away again. It might only be a problem if we try to know it. Neither probably will ever escape the fate, because the fate already hung upon Thebes. Thebes was already unwinding. It was already caught in civil war. And not only mental things are surely like this. I don't know about you, but all my adult life I've felt stalked since I met them again in Cambridge, the extreme right wing, who are asking all sorts of questions that were not just going to unpick the Keynesian consensus, but were going to unpick the very notion of the way we did states. I mean, the way we understood Britain as part of the world. They were clearly prepared to flirt with fascisms in order to achieve power. I met them at the same time as I saw Ken Livingstone. And all my life, I've watched them grow and gather in power. One kind of always knew stupid men were going to take over, you see. And here we are. And all our piety and all our wit could not undo that prophecy. Now, in Oedipus's case, what happens? Thebes collapses, civil war. And ultimately, a new dynasty will take over. And us, who have been stalked all our adult lives by the gradual, slow rise of fascism, by a left and then a kind of a middle-of-the-road centrist that were clearly unable to deal with the plumbers' problems that I used to hear about, or the electricians who worried about immigration, about the way people felt that they had taken their jobs, but really what they meant was that the politicians who they elected to look after them were increasingly abandoning them. I remember in my old activist days, their agony, and you'd hear them talk about it and say, what do we do then? There's no point voting Socialist or Labour if they don't do anything to help us. We'll need to look for redemption elsewhere. And so fate grew. Now, what is all of this about prophecy? I suppose what I mean about it is great prophecies like, for instance, Marx. You'll only know you live in a communist utopia when you finally realize you do. It's like you only know you lived through revolutions when they have happened. The actual revolution itself, what really changes, what really matters, will be violent and confusing. It is only after it has been that you can clarify what was actually happening. We all make prophecies now, you see. One of the strangenesses of our world is that we are all prophets in the dark, be it about global warming, universal destruction, or the rise of fascism. It matters that we understand what kind of prophets we are and how prophecy works. It will identify a future that then unwinds, that we will watch unwinding, that will clarify itself in the unwinding. So make your prophecies by all means, but do not be overcommitted to them. Do not think that they can happen only one way. For prophecies are made in the dark, but understood in the light. We must all be prophets of this age, but not blinkered by our prophecies, unless that blinkering brings us Oedipus's fate, and the madness and curse falls upon us at the last.